In this video, I would like to show you how we can make use of the array and mirror modifier to easily and quickly explore and design the proportion and shapes for stairs and steps. But first, let's hide actually all the stuff we don't need. So I press B and select my stairs. This also selects part of my exhibition model, so I press B and then with the middle mouse button, press and hold and release. I deselect what I had selected by accident, and then I can go Object, move to Layer, second layer. Or I could also press M and then 2. Okay. So the problem with lots of those SketchUp models is sometimes they look okay, but look at this. So there you see those are all individual segments. That's terrible for texturing and rendering, and it also makes everything needlessly complicated. And while stairs or steps are built out of very simple objects, the lining up everything perfectly can be really very, very time consuming. If, for example, we want to make the stairs at a different angle, we just can't scale it because, well, as you can see, it breaks. So that's, for example, an area where without additional scripts installed into SketchUp, you might hit a roadblock, and the stuff actually will be extremely easy in Blender. Also, upfront, everything what we do in Blender, we can also bring back into SketchUp. So I personally follow the philosophy, if one program can't do something easily, I just don't settle for I don't do it. I simply use the software that helps me to do it, and then I combine the data in a new file. Okay, so let's go to this first step. I select those 2 points, Shift S, so I snap my insert 3D cursor to what I have selected, press Tab. See also Tab is actually switching object in edit mode. Alternatively, you can do edit an object. And then I'm going to add a plane. Okay. Now, you want to first set your snapping to edge. Also, by the way, in case this is on the bottom, right click, flip to top. I like to have those on top. Okay. Let's select edge. Select this edge, click on this X arrow, and then press and hold Control. You don't see much happening, but once your mouse actually goes over some geometry, you see it snaps to those edges. And I snap to this edge. And here, hold Control, snap, release the left mouse button, done. Now we have to scale actually the width. So S and Y. So you see I scale, but only along the y-axis, and this actually scales it or moves the points towards each other or away from each other uniformly. Perfect. Okay, so that looks pretty good so far. Let's maybe keep it at that for the moment. So we press M and 3. So I just have it on a third layer. Now let's take a look at the modifiers, what we can do with it. Well, first I would like to give those stairs a thickness. So I could go and say solidify. With the offset, I can change the direction, but it should go down. And this number doesn't tell me much, so let's set actually the unit system to imperial. And what should we say? 3 inches. Or 2 inches for stairs or the steps. Okay. The nice thing about modifiers is you see essentially I still only deal with just a flat sheet of geometry, and the modifier interactively generates in this case the thickness. So I can always afterwards adjust these values, which is pretty nice. So I need now to replicate this first step along all those steps, and for that we can use the array modifier. So I select the array modifier, And for example, with the count, we can increase the amount. And then we have something called the offset. So for example, this is X, Y, and Z. You see with the using the complete full length of one step, we array it along the x-axis. If, for example, we say 2, you see you always have the space of a complete step in between because we use 2, which means twice this volume or the width of a step. Let's go back to 1. So this is for x, this obviously is for y. That one we don't need. For example, here, let's move this one down because that's actually for z. So then we can use actually this one slightly as a reference to maybe guess how maybe we have to do this. So let's say maybe there, let's move this one up. And maybe actually we want to move this one to here so there is a small gap between. So in case you put your foot, your front of your foot down, you don't step into an open space. And that actually shows us we need more steps. Zip, zip. And let's maybe bring this out. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Let's bring this over just a bit more. And in case I click and hold Shift, sometimes the sliding is a little bit tricky. Here with Shift and then holding Alt, I can actually go to 3 digits behind the period. So maybe like this. I can also do it by hand, 5/8. And let's maybe move it up. Okay, perfect. So you see that actually made this whole process incredibly easy. And the nice thing is now if I maybe adjust this is kind of like very dynamic, so it's very, very fast to make adjustments. So let's take a look how this one fits into our model. Okay, so this one, maybe we actually have to move to here. Let's take a look. Just eyeballing a little bit. So maybe we can actually make our step start roughly there. So maybe here I want this edge at the lower part, G and Z. There, okay, no it doesn't do it, sometimes it does it. Perfect. Then G and Z by hand. Let's try to eyeball it. And actually you see up there, so it's 2 inches thick in the upper left corner where my mouse is. There you see there's a number. So currently I snap this one to GZ control to that edge, G and X to that, and now I just have to move it up. So I can press GZ 2 and inches. No, that doesn't work. So because metric, in metric it works. Inches a little bit less easy. 2 ways. We can press GZ, and then we press the equal sign and type in 2 inches. And that works. So we're pressing the equal signs like an Excel when you type a function, but that sounds kind of complicated. We can also simply press N and open the transform property. Here we'll see actually where it is. So this object starts at a height of 11 feet 319 plus something, and then we can simply press spacebar to plus 2 inches, press enter, and moves it up. So you see actually you can do small math calculations. Minus 2 inches divided by 2. See, it goes to half the height, or multiplied by 2 and plus 2 inches. Okay, perfect. So after having done this, then we realize, oops, the steps are too far. So here now we have, for example, to adjust how before these steps flow out. So there, then maybe we have to play with this a little bit. And then there, maybe yeah, have to find a good compromise. Shouldn't be too deep. We need enough space actually for, obviously, for the feet. So maybe like this, that could maybe do it. Okay, so that was actually one way. We could also actually have done it by simply changing the size of the stairs. And you see when I do this, kind of like this proportion with how much actually the next step remains under the first step, or the previous step is the same. If I just change this one, you see I slide them actually under more. And that's not really what I want. So in this case here, maybe let's simply do it this way. That should still be okay. So let's see how big is actually the depth. So 13 inch, so we still have over a foot. So that should be okay. Good. So there's actually another problem I just noticed. The first step here is kind of awkward. So let's see maybe what we can do here in this case. Maybe we actually have to adjust it a little bit this way. I just move this one to here. So it's actually on top. Okay. So I add one more step. And then I adjust the height till maybe the next step is at the same height as the floor. So now the distance between the steps is equal the distance between the ground. Okay, and then maybe we can eliminate one step because we don't need it anymore. And now you see currently the last step touches the top face. If maybe we would like this to go down a little bit, so just made a copy because I would like this one to snap to this height. So Shift D, Z, move it down, G and Z, hold Control, click. There we lined it up. Let's see how this works. We can take out one step. Yeah, well, that's, for example, also a possibility. However, well, it should work, but kind of visually, I don't really like now this block there. Essentially, best maybe would be if then it's kind of there. I don't know. Let's see how it looks when we have the previous step. So it's all at the same height. So proportionally, this, like, those distances should be all exactly the same now. So if I add a small cube and I just add this cube simply as a quick foam model. Yeah, see, it's not really the way it should be. So this one actually has to go up to there. Okay, and then now there actually I can adjust this a little bit till we have this distance, and actually I can remove one step more. And now this is more evened out. Okay. Let's keep it at this for the moment, and let's save before Blender crashes. And let's take a look at how we can now create actually the handrail. But first, we need something that supports actually the stairs. So I select my object here, and I click this edge here, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then I say go to, what was it again? Hold on 1 second, because I always do those with my, oh here, key shortcuts. So set origin, origin to 3D cursor. Only a minor thing happened. There's this blue dot, and this blue dot, that's the object reference center. So kind of like where you read this information from, and it got put onto this blue line. So then Shift S, cursor to selected, okay, and then Shift S, plane. Now this edge with Control I snap to there, and AA, Shift and Y, let's scale this one down, and then I can G and move it. You see I'm in a side view. G and X until it hits that block. Okay. Normal. You see with the normal it actually moves it along this face, so that's pretty good. Okay, so now we have at least a sheet of geometry, but obviously that's not very stable. So we go into edit mode, select everything. I switch back this to local, press E, press X, and then G and X, so move it. Alternatively, I could also have press A, E for extrude, but I don't like move it, and then I press X, and then actually I can just move it left and right. So maybe do this and do that instead, and then G and X, and maybe here I make this one match actually this face here, so it's a nice straight corner. Let's take a look. The geometry is blue, so tab AA, go to shading, recalculate. Okay, now this is better. Okay, so this geometry, or that thing, actually currently sticks in there. I would say that's pretty much okay. We can, sorry, if you want to be a little bit more accurate, we could actually select this face, move it down, move it to here, and then Z, Control, snap it to there. So it's a little bit more geometrically accurate. But again, you know, for digital renderings, what you don't see, don't care. Those, what we do here are presentation models. These are not construction models. So a little bit of inaccuracy is really fine. So before I do the next step, I go to the object data for this plane. I'll, for example, call this one, how should we call that? Stair, spine, or beam. Here, let's call this beam. And maybe call this one steps. Okay, perfect. So we have to create the handrails. Easiest way, create a cylinder, and maybe let's say 2 inch by 2 inch. Okay, let's move this one up, and I would like to recenter this object center point, so I select actually the lower ring, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then origin to 3D cursor, and you see this blue point got moved down. So now I can position this object right on this face, so I can move it along the Z-axis, move my mouse to an edge, hold Control, and it's going to be positioned on that edge. Perfect. Press 7 on the numpad. So maybe we can nicely position it, maybe like this. Okay. So Then next step, I don't press Shift D to make a copy, I press Alt D to make a clone. So Alt D and X and the Z axis, hold Control and move it back there. And you see this way I trusted my snapping and got perfectly positioned. Okay. Now we need actually also the handrail. So maybe this one. Now in this case I press Shift D. Also, by the way, you have duplicate and linked. So this is a normal copy. That's the clone. Alt D and Shift D. In this case I press Shift D. And actually I move this one to here. Rotate this one. Because I want to see how much I have to rotate it. And I try to use that beam actually as a visual helper. So the rotation is, it looks like 130 degrees. Ooh, no, not really. Let's see more. Oh, 135. Or at least close to it. Oops. Alt H to unhide. Yeah, that's pretty close. Okay, so now this one I can move maybe to there. This object should be a tick bigger because the lower post we have to secure onto the handrail. So maybe here we can type in 2.5. No, you know what? Actually make it 3 inch and 3 inch. Oh, that looks pretty massive. Okay, so 2.5 inch, 2.5 inch. And then we can go into edit mode, and then I press A, Z, B, select all the front points. And then here's an interesting thing. We go to local. You see how my 3D widget immediately switches to the 130.5 rotation. And then I can actually move this one down simply along the distance I need. And let's say this should be an additional inch. So we can press G, Z, and Z again for local. Then I press the equal sign, 1 and foot, and there's my 1 foot. So let's go to here. Let's maybe move this one to there. Press G, Z, Z, and 1 and minus is actually negative 1 foot. So you see, in case you just need to work in feet, then you don't need to press the equal sign. If you have to work with inches, then you need the equal sign. So let's call this one maybe handrail. Whoops. Okay. And maybe this one we call handrail post 1. Copy. And this one here ran handrail post 2. Okay, so why did I do this? Well, we also need the other side, but honestly I don't want to copy this if I then have to adjust the geometry. I have more stuff to take care of. And let me introduce you to the mirror modifier. Pretty nice. So you select it. Okay, turn off X, turn on Y, because that's Y direction. And I would like to mirror it along this stair beam. So I click on object, type in stair, there's beam, and there it is. Let's do this one more time. And mirror, X off, Y on, stair beam. I could even click on this one, and then say Control L. So copy, for example, the modifier settings from my first object to this one there. So the nice thing is, ooh, see, everything is interactive. Pretty nice. because essentially we only have the handrail, those posts and the pin once in the scene. Let's save. And I would like to show you actually one additional interesting thing about the stairs. So Shift D, let's move this one over. Shift S, cursor, add an empty, and the empty is a reference object. So check this one out. Click the stairs and turn this one off, turn this one on, type in empty, okay, and move this one down. Ooh, you see that? It is actually changing it. So the distance of that empty now decides actually X, Y, and Z. That's already interesting. But even more interesting is when we start rotating that axis. So maybe -20. Okay, let's take a look and look at what we have. We have a spiral staircase. Very, very easy. So a spiral staircase also needs maybe some sort of a center post. So somewhere here we need to insert a cylinder. So Shift A, circle, cylinder. Let's maybe make this one 64 in case you don't see this one. Press T, there's a small plus, and then you should see this. And then this one we move to there, A and A, and for example S and Shift Z, scaling actually the center. A and then move this one down. There's now our post, as you can see. S, Shift Z, that actually only allows me to scale it along the, how could I say that, X and Y axis without touching the Z axis. So, but there, as you can see, some problems we have here. So, let's see what I can do here instead. So, pressing Control R and Control R, going to there, and the main reason for that is so I can find the correct center point. There. To that center point, I'm going to adjust actually my object origin, so origin to 3D cursor. Okay, and then also my empty, Shift S, selection to cursor. Then I can move this one down. Now you will see actually that the stairs are perfectly flowing around the center pole. Now this might look a little bit complicated or confusing, but this is very easy explained. So you see this object has actually a blue dot. That's the center point. So the center point is being arrayed, and not the geometry, but the center point. And think about like a text box. You rotate a text box and the text follows it. Here we rotate the geometry box and the geometry follows it. And because this all has to be along the z-axis, because otherwise we have also here a spiral, as you can see, with a twist. That's the reason why this empty also has to be right where, for example, the stair has its object center. And that's pretty much all to it. So not too complicated. At the beginning it sounds confusing, but it's actually very, very logical. Okay, so now you might need also to have some handrails. Yeah, a little bit more tricky maybe to build. So let me maybe introduce you to this tool. So Shift S, curvature selected, so it's centered, and then we go to Shift A, curve, and maybe let's use a Bezier curve. Yeah, maybe to start with. No, actually, you know what? We use a NURBS curve. Okay. Let's go to top view and edit. Let's take a look at where everything is. So maybe at this point, G and then Control, snap to there. Okay, and let me hold on 1 second. G and Control and there. G, Control there. G and Control there. Okay. So while in edit, click on the option for the curve object and then scroll down to here and turn on this endpoint. What this endpoint actually means is that the curve starts and ends in those endpoints. So now we can actually start a little bit more, maybe working this way. So maybe we actually take 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. So you see I snap actually always to those geometry parts. E, I can easily extrude this one out. E and E. This is a really quick and dirty hack. So because spirals are a little bit tricky, but actually for presentation purpose, again, this is not a bad way how to do it. And maybe at the end here we have to add an additional end and start point. But in general, what we maintained is you see we already got from the top view kind of like a good circular path, and also from here we got that spiral look. So now we can move this one, for example, up as much as we need, and then we can go ahead and, for example, carefully try to move these points perpendicular away from the surface till, for example, we start seeing the path always touching touching actually the outside of our steps. So in this one, for example, it has to be bent in a little bit. There. What about this body? You and you. And there. So always press G to move it. There. Okay, see this already works much better. Now those actually, they have to be more inwards and inwards. Okay. So now we have a line. Well, we don't have a handrail. Okay, not a big deal. This one now, for example, we call NURBS spiral handrail profile. Actually, this NURBS I can remove. Just spiral handrail profile. Shift S and select NURBS curve, or circle, sorry. See, this one is a pretty big curve. Maybe let's call this one spiral. Oh my god, how do you spell spiral? I have a blank. Spiral. No, it was correct. Why did I think this is wrong? Okay, spiral cross section. So this object is actually 2 feet, way too big, so maybe 2.5 inches for X and 2.5 inches for Y. Nice and small. And then we can select actually this spiral, go to here, and then say I would like to bevel. And the word maybe is not necessarily the best, but we kind of like create a profile, a three-dimensional bevel along this path. So we could also call this actually extrude, but let's call this spiral. And you see actually when we click on the field here, we only can select spiral cross section, because this is the ring is the only other object that's valid for the selection. Click it, and there we have it. Pretty nice. This is actually a pretty awesome tool because it allows you some interesting designs. So for example, I would like to have, nope, a double helix. Oh, or maybe another one. So you see this object center is being run along kind of like the spiral path, and then the geometry, the profiles are being used to create actually this geometry. You can even take this one and drag this one out. Okay, let's not be too crazy. Let's delete all this and just keep it. So empty pipes we would like to cap. Well, there's a fill cap button. There's an app for that. And oops, there. We basically have our spiral staircase. So the NURBS curve actually here is pretty much the same as in Autodesk when you use the CV spline. It really works the same way. When we go Shift A and say Bezier curve, let's move this one to there, and let's say spiral handle profile cross section. So the Bezier curve works not the same way. This actually works more like the spline curve in Autodesk. So Autodesk has two different NURBS curves. Blender offers exactly the same. So maybe let's hide this for a moment. You know what? Here. Let's do it this way for the moment, so we can use this as a reference. And the Bezier, you can, if you want to, play with this one as well. All I need is maybe at every quarter position here, I have to rotate this one cleanly 90 degrees. There, rotate minus 90, E to another pole and rotate 90 minus E, and maybe go to there as well, rotate and 90 minus. Now you see, yeah, okay, we have to move this one down, and there we have this one to there and there. So you see already that those handles have a very strong influence on how the curve actually looks. So for example, here now I have to rotate this one, maybe minus 30, rotate minus 30. Let's move this one down. Let's go to there. Rotate 30, okay. Oh, and this one here I have to move down. Okay, and then actually we can select all those endpoints. Or hold on, I just select one, and then I, for example, scale those handles away, maybe S and then 2, S and 2, S and 2. So with 2 I make it 2 times bigger. So you see I'm pulling those handles out, and that actually softens the curve a little bit. And then I can go ahead and start maybe adjusting my curves a little bit more. So for example, something here doesn't look good. I think this one here, yeah, this one has to go more to there, so it doesn't look so blobby down there. So essentially, that can create a spiral as well, maybe with a little bit less work. Oh, no, actually it has more work because you have to adjust all those handles. You can actually get a nice spiral with less control points, but you have to then really be kind of like geometrically correct with where you place those spline points or fit points, and then handle the adjust the handles. And like with everything in Blender, R is for rotate, G is for move, S is for scale. The same also that applies to polygon modeling applies to working with the CVs and the handles for the spline curves in Blender. Okay, maybe one last mini step extra. So here, let's say E and then zip X out. Let's rotate this one there. Let's move this one up. Maybe this one I move in. Move this one up. And maybe down. Select those two, S and Z and 0. Let's move this one. No. Move this one up. This one maybe move in a little bit. E, move along X. S and 0. S and 0. And as you can see, actually, we have created ourselves a somewhat straight connection. So that's, for example, how you do something like this. So you need then additional geometry points. Maybe this one we just pull out more, just this handle. Here, this can actually maintain being really small. Also, local. And for handles, we have a normal as well. So you see now I can actually move the length of a normal along the distance of a normal. This is actually really nice. Because otherwise you might have to deal with X, Y, and Z. And here Z is just the direction this handle for the spline curve looks like. Okay, that was everything for stairs.